When you've got a scene that has many objects in it, like my apartment here, then it's important to place the objects onto display layers. That'll give you the ability to show or hide a whole bunch of objects at once. You can also freeze them so you can't touch them. You can also determine whether they're renderable or not, all from a single panel, which is the Layers Explorer. Just so we can see what we're doing a little bit better, I'm going to zoom out in this perspective view. Down here in the viewport navigation tools, I've got the field of view button. Looks like a little angle. Click on that and then just drag downward, and that'll let you zoom out to take in a greater angle of view and see more of the scene. All right, I'll go to the Select tool, and let's open up the Layer Explorer. It's found on the main toolbar, and there it is, Toggle Layer Explorer. It's a variation of the Scene Explorer that's dedicated to working with display layers. And as you can see, I've got a whole bunch of them in here already. In the XREF scenes that I brought in, I had already prepared them by placing the appropriate objects into their own layers. And we can do things like hide. For example, we got the little eyeball. We can hide these different elements here. And now I've hidden everything except for the staircase because it's not in any of these named layers. The staircase is actually inside this other layer, which is just default. When you create objects in 3ds Max, they will be dropped into the active layer. And the active layer is indicated here by a little blue layer icon. And the default layer is active by default. And that means when you create something, it'll be dropped into this default layer. Okay, what I want to do here now is to create a layer for the staircase. And to do that, I'll simply select it. Notice that in the Layer Explorer, all of the members of the group are highlighted. I clicked on the group, it's selected, and all its members are also selected. Then I can create a new layer which will include the selected objects. And that's what this plus sign is here. Okay, so click on that, create new layer. And now we've got a layer that's just named Layer 001 by default. And we want to give it a name. Let's just call it Stairs. And notice now that is the active layer. When you create a new layer in 3ds Max, it is made active for you. And that's actually not really desirable, but that's the way the program was designed. Be aware that now if I make new objects, they will be dropped into this Stairs layer. And so the moral of the story here is that when you make a new layer, you need to then immediately make the default layer active again. Otherwise, you're going to have problems later. Okie doke, so we've got our Stairs layer built, and we can re-enable the visibility of all these other layers. If you need to move things in between layers, it's very simple. You can just select something and then drag and drop it into another layer. And now I've moved just that handrail into the default layer. And of course I can move it back and just click on that and drag it back into the stairs. We can also freeze. Each one of these layers has got a little snowflake icon next to it. If I enable that on all of these, then the objects are now unselectable, which is good because, for example, if I'm doing a camera walkthrough, I want to animate the camera. I don't want to be able to accidentally select or move anything else. A final note here, the default behavior of 3ds Max is to display frozen objects in gray. And I've changed that up a bit here. You can see that my plants are not being grayed out, even though they're frozen. I can't click on that. But I just wanted to be able to see the colors of things even though they were frozen. And to do that with layers, we have to follow a particular procedure. Let me show you how it works. I'll unfreeze that plants layer and open up the plants. And to make sure that frozen objects are not displayed in gray and they're inside a layer, here's what you got to do. You've got to select all the objects. And in this case, I've got a lot of plant objects. All those curves are actually blades of grass. I want to select all those. Shift and select all that stuff. And then right-click. And from the quad menu, choose By Layer. Activating By Layer means that the object display properties will be inherited by the layer display properties. Click on By Layer. Now that all of those objects are inheriting the display properties of the layer, then we can change up the behavior of that layer. I'll freeze the layer and then right-click on that layer and choose Properties. And here we've got a switch, Show Frozen in Gray. If that's on, then all the plants will be displayed in gray. And if it's off, then even frozen objects will display with their color and texture. There's a lot more to the Layer Explorer. That's the basics, though. You want to be able to control the visibility and also the selectability, and additionally, by the way, the renderability, which is this column here. If I turn this little teapot off, then I would be able to see the objects in the viewport, but then when I render, they wouldn't show up. That's a basic introduction to display layers.